Hello, hello. Um, for everyone who finds this will be a very short stream. I am just going to run some standard Blender test scenes in Blender 3.6 to test the 6800 XT. And then once I'm done here, I'll run my diamonds test scene because that takes a while. But we will we'll test the 6800 XT and we'll compare it to the ARC A770 and we'll see what kind of value these cards hold against each other. So let me get everything ready to go here. So um, on the screen, I have my benchmark results. We're going to run Classroom, Barbershop, Lone Monk, and Scanlands, and then we'll see what I have time for. I do have to be done by about 8:50. So, well, 8:50 my time, it's 8:15 now. So I'm going to keep it to about 30 minutes, 35 minutes maybe. But let's see how far we can get. So first things first, I will add our GPU to the list here. And as we're getting this set up, you can kind of see the old results. So for the classroom scene, I'm going to test HIP-RT and normal HIP because it's very easy to switch that in the render settings. So I'll run both of them. Oh, I should have just let that copy. There we go. And then I'm actually going to grab these cells and just copy them everywhere because we will need them on all of these sheets. And then we are all set up. So some of these I have other GPUs, but for most of them, we're just going to be comparing the Intel and the 6800. So that's what we're going to start with. So let's start off with Classroom, and I've already remoted in. So let's go up here and we will select the Blender HIP. This is Blender 3.6. We have HIP RT enabled right now. I'll take it off. We'll start with the slower ones first. Okay, so you can see here we are going to GPU render with the 6800 XT and no HIP RT. Okay, so I'm going to just hit render. And this shouldn't take real long. I think these higher end AMD GPUs are plenty fast, so these benchmarks are not going to take super long to do. But you will see how much better HIP RT is. So if you're new to the stream, thanks for coming on. Love to have you. I think streaming is a lot more fun than recording, so let me know if you have a different opinion, but I like to just sit and hang out with everyone live, so. All right, so we're going to round that up to 38 seconds. So this was 38 seconds with no HIPRT, so I will log that. Okay, and now keep in mind, these are all on Blender 3.6. So I'm not switching Blender versions, I'm just taking off the HIPRT checkbox, and you can already see what I found to be just stunning, but the ARC A770 16 gigabyte card from Intel tied HIP on the 6800 from AMD. So if you compare the cost difference, this makes the Intel look very, very attractive. But let's go run with HIPRT on and we'll see what kind of benefit we get. So I'll just check that box on. No other changes. We'll just render the image. And this one will take a little less time. But this is a very short scene anyway. So one thing that I'll note is I was able to get the Intel A770 for under $300 on Prime Day, and if you can get that GPU with the 16 gigs of VRAM for anywhere near 300 bucks, all my tests have been showing that it's a fantastic value. The only thing you have to note is that you need to enable certain BIOS settings, This one is 34.5 seconds. So let's just actually type that in. Um, but yeah, to run the Intel GPUs, you have to enable the direct memory access settings, or the resizable bar settings in the BIOS. So if you have an old enough computer, you won't be able to do that. So you have to be aware of that issue. And some apps it won't matter. Some apps it'll destroy the performance. So just be aware. But in this test here, it looks like the 6800 XT just barely beat the Intel A770. So um, just for first results, that's actually pretty good. It's pretty wild, because even today, the 6800 XT brand new is a bit more expensive. I think a couple hundred more dollars, if they're on sale. So I think the normal list price for this A770 is closer to 400. So that does even it up a little, but I would say the Intel's competitive. So don't rule it out, and we'll see what we get. So next one, we are going to go get the barbershop scene. Now this one will take a little bit longer, but we will just get it going and see what we get. So if you're watching, how are you? Get down there in the chat. Let me know what's going on. It's always fun to talk to everybody. This barbershop scene takes just a second to load up anyway. Um, One other thing that I always point out when I remember to, the files I have on here that I'm benchmarking from are stored on a shared computer. So there is probably some amount of like uh, lag in loading the scene. So you may notice some of these scenes take longer to open than you may expect, and that would be why. But I do all of my tests this way, so it shouldn't be causing a performance problem. But um, anyway, so here is the barbershop scene. I'm running frame 100. I don't know why, I just picked that one, and that's what I've been going with. But this is the 6800 XT in the barbershop scene. Maybe. There we go. And I'll just have to watch. If some of these take a minute to load at the beginning, then we will restart the test because it's probably just loading geometry stuff. And so normally on each GPU, you probably only have to do that one time. So normally I will come open these scenes and let them start up once, and then I'll restart the test. Yeah, so like in this case, I'll probably restart this test because that's what I normally do, and we'll just see if any of the information is still loaded in, and then it will start faster. But that'll just keep the playing field more level. And I don't know if AMD maybe isn't affected quite as much, but I know sometimes the first time you open a scene on NVIDIA GPUs, they have to build the, I don't know if it's the optics backend or the CUDA, whatever it is, it has to build before it renders. So I always try to get that out of the way before I record a result. And it looks like this one's going through the same process. Okay, so we've got it started. Now keep in mind this was, I believe this was no HAPRT. So, and I can already tell this is significantly faster than the 6700 XT. So, I would say so far I've been disappointed with the 6700, and pleasantly surprised by the Intel A770, and so far I've been very surprised by the 6800. So there is a big jump from the 6700 XT to the 6800 XT, and I think the price doesn't necessarily reflect that always. So if you're in the market for one of those two, maybe try to get closer to that 6800. I think they're just a lot better raw performance. So for about every task, they're going to win on value. Okay, and this one's about half done. While this is loading, we can come look at the old results. So um, here the Intel beat the 6700 by quite a bit, and it absolutely murdered the 6600, which I would kind of expect. Um, Other ones I've run, obviously 5700 XT was relatively slow, but it was almost as fast as the 6600. So that is interesting. But the 5700 won't benefit from ray tracing enabled on HIPRT, and I did test that with and without HIPRT. And the 5700 or the 5000 series don't have ray tracing cores, so they're virtually the same between HIP and RT. And then I have the 2080 Ti Kingpin, which I list that because it's significantly faster than a stock 2080 Ti. So it may not be a representative result of all of the 2080 Ti models. And then I have the 4090 listed here. I have other GPUs that I'll throw on this list eventually, but um, right now we're going to focus just on the Intel mainly. But you can just see how much faster like the 4090 is than anything else on here, and it's even 3 times faster than the 2080 Ti Kingpin. So pretty wild. But let's go check. So this screen here normally means that Blender caused the remote desktop to crash for some reason, which almost always means that um, the scene crashed in Blender. So I'll remote back in. Normally it doesn't shut off the PC, but it'll kill the Blender iteration. So let's just see what happened here. And sometimes I'll sign in and it's just dead. Yeah, see there's no file open. So that is definitely not the kind of result we want to see. Let's go check on our uh, our drivers here and see if we can figure out what's going on. I think the drivers should be okay. Yeah, 23.7. Well, it was late June. It looks like my connection's being goofy. I know there have been newer versions, but let me open up the Barbershop one more time. I'm gonna go run and um, reboot the internet really quick. Should only take about a minute. And then I'll start this render, but we'll see if there's a newer AMD driver or not. I don't know if there is. Actually, we can go look because I probably have it on a different GPU. So let's just check render. Let's check render 2 or 3 and see what they have. Because I think render 2 should have some 5000 series cards. Um, Otherwise, render 9 should have a 6600. That would be a good one. Don't ask again. Yes. Yeah, I swear, every time any sort of storm happens here, we lose power, and all of these machines have to be restarted to get new IP addresses. It's just awful. Okay. Looks like we have the Pro Edition software on here. On this one may not have the same driver anyway. So this one has the 5500 XT and the W5500, which is the Pro card. So that's actually probably not quite what we want. Let's try render 9. Yeah, this is the fun of managing um, multiple machines. All right, let's get this bench running again. Turn off HIPRT. We'll hit render. Come on. There is quite a bit of lag in the user interface here, and I'm a little curious why that would be. Oh yeah, I need to set this to frame 100 as well. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead and start it, and I will be back in about 15 seconds. Okay, I'm back. We'll see if we can get some connection here in a minute. You may wonder how I can swap out internet connections, but I actually have two of them, and they're spliced together with a software. So if I lose one, I can still keep streaming just fine. I just may lose bitrate a little bit, but that's it. So yeah, unfortunately, every time my power flickers, all of these machines, um, they might stay on, or the router might stay on, and then the IP addresses just don't match up anymore. So it just causes problems, and that happens fairly often. But this machine doesn't have internet access at the moment because of that. But let's go see. Yeah, see, render 9 is also shut down. I know render 5 is off because that's a PC that I had swapped out. What else do we have? Render 3 may work. Okay, this one's about done. So maybe we'll just wait for these results. But yeah, so you guys can see how my setup works. You have to remote in to every computer to control them. I've tried softwares that control it, namely CrowdRender, and they're on the right track, but I've never got CrowdRender to be completely stable all the time. So, um, I spent some time fighting with it, but okay. So the barbershop scene might be done here. If this crashes again, I think I know why. So we'll see if it crashes right now or not. Sometimes if you have the wrong denoiser selected, um, Blender will crash. Like if I open this file after using an NVIDIA card and I have it set to optics, it'll either keep it or have a blank setting in there, and it won't necessarily run the automatic selection, and it'll just crash Blender when the denoising happens at the very end. So um, that happens occasionally, but it looks like we got done. So this is 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Okay, and this is our barbershop scene. So 251 is 120, 171. So about 171 seconds. So it looks like it's just a little faster than the Intel A770 with HIP. We don't even have HIP RT on yet. So let's go do that. So it already has beat the Intel just barely. Now let's go ahead and enable HIP RT. Click that on. And then we'll render this. Zoom it out a little so you can see the frame. Now, I think this should run significantly faster. And where you'll notice the biggest benefit from these software upgrades is in the longer, heavier frames normally. So, and this is why I like to run my diamond test scene, is because it's a long animation. It takes multiple hours depending on the GPU. And I like to run that one because it really demonstrates how much time you actually save. So, running one frame like this is fine, but it's hard to just visualize what the difference is. But if you can see, here's my 3-second render or 4-second render of this little water simulation, you can see how much time it saved to produce that sort of work. So people ask me, why do I use something that's not a standard Blender scene? And that's the reason. It's because it's just a nice little complex reflections animation that demonstrates the savings you get from one card versus another, basically. So here we're already halfway done. Um, it looks like we're going to be quite a bit faster than the last run, but we shall see. The other theory I have, and we'll confirm it here in just a few seconds, but I think that HIPRT makes a significant difference on heavy scenes or on higher end GPUs too. So the 6800 should get more benefit because it has more RT cores. And that's just a theory. Oh no, we got another Blender crash. That is not what you want. Okay. We might have to swing back to this one because either our GPU is getting too warm, which I kind of doubt because the side panel is off on the case, or we have some sort of a driver issue here. But that would be really weird because normally if your driver is completely wrong, it just Blender won't open or it won't start to render without crashing. So I am gonna need to try to figure out what's going on with that really quick. But we'll hop on um, a different GPU real fast, and I can show you some things with that. But I think the first thing I'm going to do is reboot this machine so that we can reconnect to the internet. And then we will go into our Arc GPU computer, which is the Render 7. So let's try to sign into that one. And that one is sitting by me. So hopefully this one will work because it looks like it's on and it looks like it's doing fine. But yeah, if somebody out there knows of a good controller software that you can assign work easily, then by all means, let me know. Um, because we could really use a good software to control this stuff. Let's open let's open up Blender 3.6 here, and let's check out the classroom scene just for fun. So when you use the Intel GPUs, I would say the settings are going to look fairly similar to AMD's. So when you run cycles, you can run a denoiser, but it's going to have to be open image. So optics is just NVIDIA. So if you enable denoising, which I won't because I don't normally in these benchmarks, but you're going to use open image denoiser. And then let's look at the settings here. You're going to use one API for Intel, and you can see it shows up just fine there. And then you have to install some other packages too. So you have to have resizable bar enabled in your BIOS, which requires newer motherboards. And then you have to install some other software that kind of runs in the background, but then you have to check on this Ombre on GPU, which is, I think, part of Intel's rendering API. But if you have that on, the gains are significant. So, and this is just since Blender 3.6 that Intel added that. So it kind of came out at the same time as HIPRT. So it's been fun to test these two because, they came out at the same time. They're kind of like these brands are both behind NVIDIA just in raw power, but it's fun to see which one of them is the better value in the mid and low ends. So we'll just run this for a second and then we'll hop back onto the AMD machine. And I'll show you, so this scene basically runs the same speed as the 6800 XT. So if you're running really short simple scenes, the Intel looks like a great value. And the other note about the Intels, I didn't realize this till recently. The A750 is a lot closer to the A770 than I thought. The core is just a little bit slower, um, and it only has 8 gigs of RAM on the 750. But if you want a super good value and you can get away with 8 gigs of VRAM, the A750 is a fantastic card because it would be almost this fast. So it might be like 42 seconds in this scene, maybe just a little slower, but they're only like $220. So for something that competes with the 6800 XT, but is only $220, that's absolutely wild. So I'll probably get one sometime to test it. I just don't. I don't have one yet, so I can't prove anything, I guess. But if you look up the specs, they're very convincing that if you can get away with 8 gigs of RAM, that A750 is a good value. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds with Intel. They just have stunned me lately. At launch they were not worth it because the software was so bad, but they've improved them to a point where I'm seriously wondering whether or not they're going to be the leaders here soon. But okay. Now it kind of looks to me like we're still going to have network problems. So let's maybe try the Barbershop one more time. You know what? Let's try it at the end. How about that? Let's open I haven't been doing Barcelona because it has a texture problem. So let's see what the next one is on my list here. Let's try Lone Monk and see how that goes. That one, actually, that one's going to take a long time too. What else do we have in here? We can try it. We can try Lone Monk. We'll go right to HIPRT though. Like I said though, I do have to be done here in about 10 minutes, so we're not going to get to everything, but we'll definitely revisit this. So let's look at our settings here really fast. Looks like GPU is turned on. Edit preferences, HIPRT is enabled, and let's just go for it and see what happens. So now this is a very heavy scene. We'll see how far we get. But again, the biggest point you should take from this, I guess there's 2 points. One is that the A770 and the 6800 XT, these two right here, are very close. They trade blows in these tests, and depending on the frame, um, they're not. They're still. I guess I can't lie. They're still a bit behind Nvidia. I mean, the 4090 did this scene in 9 seconds versus 35 for the 6800 XT. So it's just not that comparable. But if you're looking for value, if you're looking for 500 or less dollars per GPU, then the 6800 and the A770 look great. If you want even better value and can use 8 gigabytes of VRAM, go for the A750. As long as you can run resizable bar on your motherboard, because that makes a huge difference. But even looking at the Barbershop test here without HIPRT, because it was crashing, but with HIP, we're able to get just a little faster than the A770 still. So they're trading blows. What else can we compare on here? A sizable 40 seconds faster than the 6700 XT. And both of these cards have 16 gigs versus the 12 gigs on the 6700. So if you know you need as much RAM as you can get, then that kind of solves your dilemma on which one to pick anyway. But let's Let's go see if this is still running. It looks like this one's doing okay. Hopefully this one won't crash out on us. And again, I need to check the drivers to make sure that they're current, but you can see that apparently this machine does not have internet access at the moment. So I'm going to have to look into that. But Muhammad says, I'm new to Blender and 3D animation. If I'm rendering a 60 frame per second scene, in example, classroom scene for 3-minute animation, would it be like I'm rendering 60 frames times 60 seconds times 3 minutes? So let's pull up our handy dandy calculator here. We'll just show it. So yeah, so you want to run 60 frames per second for 3-minute animation. So yes, 3 minutes times 60 seconds is 180 seconds times 60 frames. So yes, 10,800 frames. Yep. And once you start to do that math, it really makes my render farm look like it's a good idea if you need it, because that's a lot of frames. So yeah, like your example, you're talking about rendering classroom scene. So the classroom scene for this GPU is 35 seconds. So let's take this times 35 seconds per frame. That's 378,000 seconds divided by 60 is 6,300 minutes, and divided by 60 one more time, that's 105 hours. So to run that scene at 60 frames per second for 3 minutes is going to take the 6800 XT 105 hours to run, which is pretty staggering, because normally you need to use the GPU that you're rendering with. All right, it looks like we're denoising right here, so we're right at about 4 minutes. It looks like, okay, it looks like it did fine. It survived. So 4 minutes, and we'll round up to 6 seconds. So 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Let's go log that on our Lone Monk. And this is with RT on. So this is 4. This is 246 seconds. Okay, so is that correct? 4 minutes, yeah, times 60. 246. Okay. Now that's a very interesting result. 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Okay. AMD, yeah, hey, you're welcome. I see you say thanks there in the comments. Yeah, you're welcome. 60 frames per second is a lot, and you know, normally we're used to 24, so you're more than double that. It does look smooth, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of electricity to do that amount of work. So, but anyway, yeah. So I noted in here, I wasn't able to get the A770 to run the Lone Monk scene, and I'm not really sure why. So I'll have to revisit it. It may be like some sort of node that they have in the scene isn't compatible with newer GPU systems, but comparing to other things, 246 seconds is an entire 2 minutes faster than the 2088 Ti Kingpin on optics in this scene. So that's actually staggering. I mean, that's very fast, and it looks like the 6800 is actually 3 times faster than the 5700 XT, and I would not have expected that. So that is super surprising. So good on them, because that looks great. And it's only 2.5 times slower than the 4090, which sounds funny to say, but the 4090 costs about that much more. So in this case, I'd say the 6800 XT is similar value, because if you plug this in, we'll just say we can get them for these prices, and the 6800 I think has been somewhere around 500, maybe $530 if I remember correctly. So 2.5 to 3 times the price. Yeah, so they're about right at par for value. So that's good to see. I'd say that's a good showing from AMD. And you can't get 16 gigs of VRAM except for the Intel GPU. You can't get 16 gigs of VRAM for anywhere near $530 unless you go to the 4060. But I haven't been hearing good enough things about that to recommend it yet. And again, I'll have to get one and test it, but I can't afford to buy all these GPUs yet. So bear with me. I'll get them someday. But let's go run Scanlans real quick here on the 6800 here, and then I've got about 5 minutes left, and then I have a meeting with another friend here from YouTube, so I got to get to that. But obviously, there will be plenty more to do here in the future. So we're on Blender 3.6. This is the Scanlans splash screen from Blender 3.3 LTS. We're going to run HIP RT on the 6800, so we'll go ahead and hit render. And this one doesn't take quite as long as Lone Monk. Once it loads up here, I think this one's a fairly fast sampler. Yeah, this one runs pretty quick. But initial results here tonight, I'd say the 6800 XT is still a good value. And if you can get them used, if you're willing to buy used GPUs, they're probably significantly cheap. The A770 and A750 are good values. I still like the RTX 4070. They've had sales for under 600 on those, brand new, and that's a good price because those things are very, very fast and relatively low power draw at only 200 watts. So I would look into those. Here in the future, 4060 with the 16 gigs, or 4060 Ti, I believe, is the one, yeah, that has the 16 gig option. I want to try one of those. I do want to try an A750 for myself just to see what the difference is. And then sooner or later, I'm going to try to get a hold of a 7000 series GPU from AMD. I want to keep the playing field level here. MRU Studios is here. He says, "Hey, how's it going? It's good. This is the guy that I'm gonna meet with after the stream. So if you guys don't know him, go check his channel out. I think you can click on his name in here. Let's just tag him here. How about that? I think that becomes a link. Let me know if it doesn't. But we're working on some cool stuff, some cool large scale water simulation stuff. So stay tuned for that. Go check him out. But that is where I'm going right after this. So yeah, thanks for stopping by, man. Yeah, dude. And MRU Studios today even just posts some stuff on his channel that shows one of his renders with, I believe it's an F-14, if I remember properly, flying past some ships, and it's just cooler than hell, man. So go check that out because it's just cool stuff. It's great to catch your stream. Yeah, it's I like streaming. I'm glad I started, and actually thanks to you for kind of getting me into that direction. So okay, looks like we got a result here. So 2 minutes and 5 seconds. So let's take that back to our spreadsheet. This is HIPRT, so 205 is 125 seconds. So it's right behind the Intel on this render, just by a little bit. So I would say, okay, now keep in mind, if you've been seeing these boxes on the right here, that is comparing, I'll open the formula here, that's comparing the Intel. That was the improvement from 3.6 versus 3.5. So that's not for this data. I probably should have muted that for this so you weren't confused, but yeah, I mean, let's just go back through these and summarize real fast. So comparing these ones here, it looks like the 6800 XT and the A770 are basically equals in the classroom or in the barbershop scene, but that's also without HIP RT. So we'll try to run that one more time here. Um, and that's actually probably going to get quite a bit faster. Classroom scene, the Intel is just a little behind the AMD card. So again, Intel looks like a really good value here, other than you have, those certain settings you have to enable on your BIOS. And by the way, it's like if you don't know, to get resizable bar, you have to have a 400 series AMD chipset or newer, or be able to run, I believe it's a 10th generation Intel processor. So that's probably it might be the 400 series or the 500 series motherboards for Intel. So, uh, and then there's other qualifications. So just be aware of that. If you have the Intel, if you get the Intel for this, you have to be able to enable resizable bar, or it will not function um, properly. And in some applications, it'll be completely terrible. So be aware of that. Look into it before you buy one. But if you know what I'm talking about, feel free to get them. They're great cards. They're fairly efficient, but they're very, very fast for their price. But yeah, so anyway, here 6800 just edges out the A770. Lone Monk scene. The Intel didn't work the other day for some reason, so I'll have to rerun that. But yeah, this one is about 35% faster than the 2080 Ti Kingpin. That hasn't been the case in a lot of my tests, and even like classroom here, the 6800 was 34 and a half seconds, and the 2080 Ti was 23. So it looks like in some cases the 6800 trades blows with the 2080 Ti, which is great because we got a lot more RAM on the 6800. Let's see. Scanlands. Kind of similar story. A770 and the 6800 are trading blows. I do need to run some other cards on here, but I just haven't quite got around to it. Some of these aren't as filled in as, like, here's my diamonds test scene. I'll probably fill these in on live streams instead of just recording them, because it's a lot more fun. I like to sit here and do it live, and I can summarize it like later once I get more data. So it's just a lot more fun to me to sit and do this, with everybody. Um, but yeah, I think for now that's going to be it. We are going to go. I'm going to go have my meeting. So thanks for coming in. Kind of a short, quick stream. Um, Future tests. I'm going to go back down through the list of NVIDIA GPUs that I have. So I'm going to test all of the 30 series cards basically, because I know a lot of people are still using those. And then I'm going to try to look into doing older AMD stuff, but like Vega 56 and RX 580, that kind of stuff, it's really hard to get them to work right. So I'm not going to recommend that anybody buys those, but I know some people have them and they need to use them because some parts of the world especially, it's very hard to get GPUs, or it's just not worth the amount of money you have to fork over for it. So we're going to try to test those older things, and if I have to go back in an older version of Blender, I will. MRU Studio says you don't have to cut your stream short. No, that's all right. We don't. I don't have a lot of other tests to run right now anyway. I need to go check on the driver problems that I'm having, or the supposed driver problems. In a couple of these scenes, like the barbershop, I've had some crashes, so I'll have to debug that anyway. But yeah, don't worry about it. We're good. Anyway, but yeah, so this will be about it. One other one that I did get a request for though is to do some video compression using AV1 encoders. So I'll test. Basically, I could test right now Intel and NVIDIA. So I will try to do that. I haven't done a lot of that before, but I'll learn how. But people have been requesting some other benchmarks that aren't rendering, so I'll try to hit those. But yeah, no, otherwise, the takeaway right now, A770 and 6800 XT both look like decent values. And for their prices, I'll say for their prices, they're good values, and they look like they trade blows. So if you're comparing between those two, um, you can probably just make a guess and buy which one is at a better price in your area. So um, that's the running conclusion at the moment. I would say that you should probably watch for some other benchmarks later this week. I'll probably have a couple more ready to go, especially those 30 series cards from NVIDIA. But otherwise, that's it for now. Quick, short and sweet one. Thanks for watching. It's always fun, and I'll see you soon.